Let's take a look at the Browns and Eagles next. Cleveland wins this game 22-13. Dylan Gabriel getting the start for the Cleveland Browns in what feels like, outside of the Dallas Cowboys, is the best reality TV show that we have, is who is going to play the most snaps at quarterback for the Cleveland Browns this season. Sorry to Tyler, our head producer back there. I'm sure that he's tired of hearing about it. Let's take a look at Cleveland's top 5 graded players as they did win this game. Linebacker Easton Macarena Arnold with an 84.3. Offensive guard Tevin Jenkins coming over from Chicago. He is second on this list with an 83.7. Offensive guard Javian Cohen with an 83.4. Always believed. I had him pretty high on my pre-draft rankings, I think 2 years ago. And so I'm taking this as a scouting win. I'm going to take it as a win right here, with him being number 3 here on this list with an 83.4 in the preseason week number 2. Linebacker Jerome Baker with an 81.0. And then safety Donovan McMillan with a 79.6. On Philadelphia's side of things, holy cow. Speaking of young guys standing out, Andrew Mukuba. He is gunning for a starting safety spot, is he not? 95.7 overall grade in this one. Had the interception that was, we'll talk about that there with Dylan Gabriel, but he was the one who ended up picking off that pass. Cornerback Perry Nickerson with an 87.9. Linebacker Jahad Campbell with an 85.0. Cornerback Jacorian Bennett with an 84.0. And then linebacker Jeremiah Trotter Jr., a 79.6. Good to see some of those young guys and those names in there for Philadelphia. But are we talking Dylan Gabriel to start? What are we doing here, Dalton?
Yeah, I mean, that's the story, right? Everybody's favorite QB2 battle is here in Cleveland, with Shedeur Sanders and with Dylan Gabriel. And Gabriel, I thought, aside obviously from the pick 6 and the botched handoff, those are really the 2 big mistakes that dragged the grades down. He did look solid, and especially when he got to throw the ball on time. Trev, on throws that were released in under two and a half seconds, he was 9 for 9 with 100 yards and an 80.3 passing grade. The difference you see between him and Shedeur Sanders is Sanders can create a little bit more late in the play. Obviously, as we saw last week against Carolina, he's got a little more improv to him. He's used to it from all the pressure he was under at Colorado. Dylan Gabriel wants to stand in the pocket, step up, and go through his progressions. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's just that you're going to get a lack of creativity, right? I think it's going to be a little more like someone like Tua Tagovailoa in Miami, where when he's on time and protected and able to make those throws, he can make them accurately in 2.5 seconds or less. Or less, I should say, and you're just not going to get a whole lot of creativity from him. So what we've seen are 2 solid performances from each guy. You've just gotten 2 very different performances, right? Shedeur attacked down the field a little bit more and created outside the pocket a little bit more. When Gabriel was protected, he looked really good in rhythm. It's when he gets out of rhythm and the pressure is on and he has to get late in the play where it didn't look great. You saw that on the interceptions. There was a couple other times where he wasn't quite as accurate as things started to break down. You get beyond that 2.5, 3 second mark. There's just not as much athletically to work with. I don't think he's as used to working around that with as quickly as he got rid of the ball in college and as well as he was protected in college there at Oregon. So 2 different styles. I think Kevin Stefanski really still has a decision as far as which guy is the second guy, but the way they've looked through a preseason game each, I start to feel like, especially with the injury, that Kenny Pickett is going to be the odd man out. And one of these guys is going to be QB2. One of them is going to get carried as the third quarterback. I think they've both looked solid in their own way. Gabriel, yes, he had the one bad throw. He had the pick 6 to Mukuba, but otherwise he was efficient. And when he is protected, he can make enough throws to keep the chains moving.
Yeah, look, I think that Joe Flacco's going to be the starting quarterback for this team week 1. Right, I think that everybody believes that. It would be a major shock to me if it is anybody else. You're talking about either, like you mentioned, 2 rookies or Kenny Pickett, who is sort of like a mix of both of those players that you mentioned, but he's not the rookie that you would probably rather start and give a chance to anyways to see if they have a higher ceiling. So I agree with you. It does feel like Kenny Pickett's going to be the odd man out here. I feel like Joe Flacco's going to be that starting quarterback early on, but I don't think that Joe Flacco is going to start the majority of the games this season. Certainly as we get into the second half of the season, I think they're going to want to see one of these rookies try to take the reins and give them the job there. But, well, I don't want to say give them. That's probably insulting. Earn the job is a better way to say it. It just kind of comes down to what kind of quarterback they're going to need in the second half of the season. Is this team really relying on their defense? Are they still in the playoff hunt at all whatsoever? Do they just need a quarterback who can really operate the offense well and score a couple of touchdowns here and there, but maybe not light up the scoreboard? Maybe Dylan Gabriel is that guy. If they need somebody who could be a little bit more fearless for them, push the ball deep down the field, wanting to make those bigger plays, I feel like Shedeur over the last couple of years at Colorado has shown you that he wants to do that. So, when it comes to Gabriel, the eventful part of his day was unfortunately the pick 6 that he threw. he shouldn't have thrown it probably still, but there is context when you rewatch the play. Blake Whiteheart, the tight end, he's running a route to the flat. He gets bodied by the linebacker way too deep, and he ends up getting way too far up the field. And then Deontay Johnson's running a crosser, and Mukuba basically like pushes him down in his route to where all of a sudden both of those guys are there at the same time. I think Gabriel was throwing it to Deontay Johnson, but he probably didn't even see Mukuba right there, because if you kind of think about it from Dylan Gabriel's angle, both the Philadelphia linebacker, I can't remember who it was, and the tight end, they were probably blocking Mukuba. He probably didn't even know that Mukuba was there. So all of a sudden he lets the ball out of his hand and Mukuba basically comes out of nowhere. So look, is it an interception? Obviously it's interception, but we're all about context here at PFF, and that's sort of the context there for me. I think when you watched it live, you go, oh my gosh, what a horrendous interception from Dylan Gabriel there. And when you rewatch it and see the context, you go, okay, that probably wasn't as bad as it looked live. So just wanted to say that there. On the flip side of things, the guy who intercepted that pass, Andrew Mukuba, it feels like he's making it quite the competition for who's going to start at safety between him and Sidney Brown. I love Sidney Brown. Obviously been banged up a little bit. It was tougher. He played through injury when he was at Illinois. Obviously, he has suffered some injuries here in the NFL as well. But man, I think that Sidney Brown is a really good football player. And even with that being the case, Andrew Mukuba's making this tough because he is one hell of a player. And certainly the way he played last year, he played with his hair on fire. Dalton, I know that you know this, not just from a draft perspective, but being a college football guy, what Andrew Mukuba meant to that Texas secondary, how fearless he was to come downhill and run defense despite being more of a slender build type of a player, not having a ton of mass on him, and then just the range that he could have as a really good athlete. He's showcasing that in the NFL already here in the preseason, obviously earning some elite grades for it like we saw there, that 95.7. And then on the flip side, man, I think that Jeremiah Trotter Jr., I know that this team drafted Jahad Campbell and they really like him back end of the first round, but to have a guy like Jeremiah Trotter Jr. sort of waiting in the wings, and if you have any sort of short-term injury between Zach Bond or Jahad Campbell, being able to have the luxury of putting Jeremiah Trotter into one of those spots, knowing how high his floor is, how the guy is always at the right place at the right time, he's reading things the correct way. I mean, that is true. I've used the word a couple of times here, but luxury is the word. And so what a great depth player for the Philadelphia Eagles to have. And I'll even say this too, with the Eagles losing some players on the edge and needing some production on the edge this upcoming season, there's a world where you could put Jeremiah Trotter in at one of those off-ball linebacker, middle linebacker spots, and then you could put Jahad Campbell as sort of an edge rusher, because we've seen him do that when he was at Alabama, really good as a blitzer. Now, as a full-time edge rusher, okay, maybe not. That's a different craft that you sort of have to learn there. But I think that the better Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is, the more flexibility the Philadelphia Eagles have at that linebacker level, whether it's off-ball linebacker work or on-ball linebacker work with their edge rushers. So those two guys, Jeremiah Trotter Jr. and Andrew Mukuba, I think they're going to give the Philadelphia Eagles valuable reps as they go on their Super Bowl defense run.
Mukuba's going to be a huge factor. I thought it was a spectacular draft pick when they did take him. He's a perfect fit in Vic Fangio's zone coverages. And then I think it's good to mention with Trotter, and don't forget when he's healthy, Nakobe Dean in that mix too, with Bond, Dean, Campbell, and Trotter. To me, this is far and away clearly the best linebacker room. And didn't they draft Smile Munden also as like a fifth guy late?
Yes.
I mean, that is by far, it's not even close, the best unit of linebackers in the league. Bond was the highest graded linebacker in the league last year. Dean had a really good breakout season. Campbell was clearly the best linebacker prospect in this draft. I really like Trotter in college and now here with the Eagles in a depth role. You just talk about a unit of linebackers that, like you mentioned, you have that flexibility. Campbell can play off the edge. Bond can play off the edge. Fangio's messed around with a ton of different alignments with this team already. You have Trotter. You've got Dean when he gets healthy. It's just loaded. The number of, it just feels like the Eagles can do this. When you constantly draft good players, all of this depth is only helping you. To me, again, like I just mentioned, it's by far the best linebacker unit in the league. I don't even think it's close.